Hello. Hi there. Today we're going to play an Ascension 1 Ironclad run. This is our first Ascension run of my save file where I am playing from Ascension 0 to Ascension 20. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Jorbs. I stream all the time on Twitch. I have daily uploads on YouTube. I've been playing Slay the Spire since before Defect existed and have set a ton of world records and landmark things and just done a lot in this game. I've just played a lot of this game. And this is the first time that I have ever gone from Ascension 0 all the way to Ascension 20. Because back when I started playing, like Ascension system didn't exist when I started playing, and then when it was released, it was Ascension 10, and then it was Ascension 15, and I played Ascension 15 for a long time, and finally Ascension 20 came out. So this is actually a first for me, which is strange because it's a lot of people's literal first thing they ever do in the game. In order to wrap our heads about what it means for there to be more elites at Ascension 1, I figured we should talk about what the elites actually are. There's another conversation to have about whether we should take elite floors or not and what their rewards are like, but I thought first we'd talk about what the actual fights are, and since there are 4 runs and there are 4 acts, I figured we'd do Act 1 today, and for Silent we'd look at the Act 2 elites, for Defect we'd look at the Act 3 elites, and for Watcher we'd look at the Act 4 elites, and I figured that would be a good structure to do it, and we'd all understand a bit more. So the first elite that I want to talk about in Slay the Spire is Gremlin Knob, who I affectionately named Norbert. I just started calling Gremlin Knob Norbert at some point, and I don't really understand why, but it's really stuck for me. Gremlin Knob has 82 to 86 HP, and that gets buffed to 85 to 90 HP later in the game. And Gremlin Knob's thing is, on turn 1, it will bellow, which gives it anger. So every time you play a skill, Gremlin Knob gains strength. And then it will use Skull Bash and Rush. So there's a smaller damage attack, which makes you vulnerable, and there's a much larger damage attack. At low Ascension, there's some randomness here. A third of the time it uses Skull Bash, and 2/3 of the time it uses Rush, but they're not in a particular order. But at high Ascension, Gremlin Knob always uses Skull Bash first, so you're vulnerable, and then starts hitting you really hard, which makes Gremlin Knob a very, very, very threatening fight. I would say that the most important numbers to be thinking about here are actually all of these numbers are very important, and they're all sort of ingrained in my mind, honestly. The fact that Gremlin Knob deals you 8 and then 24 with vulnerable, dealing you 32 damage over the first 3 turns of the fight on Ascension 20 is so intuitively ingrained in my brain that the difference between 33 health and 32 health for me in Act 1 is gargantuan. Like, it's the difference between resting at a campfire and not a very large amount of the time. So yeah, I guess all of these numbers are pretty important, but what does all this mean? The existence of Gremlin Knob in your run, if you cannot kill Gremlin Knob before it starts hitting you really, really hard, makes taking skills much, much, much less inviting. Taking a dodge and roll on Silent or a shrug it off on Ironclad or something like that is significantly less valuable when your deck cannot kill Gremlin Knob before the strength that Gremlin Knob would gain if you actually played those cards becomes immensely relevant to whether you're alive or not at the end of the fight. And so because of that, it's very important to take damage early on in Act 1 to deal with this fight. And there are 2 things going on here. One is taking damage makes you win the fight more easily. If you can kill Gremlin Knob before it attacks you for 24 on turn 3, you're only going to take 8 and you're going to win an elite fight, which is a really good deal. But if you can't, you're going to take 32 and, maybe die. So that's a big difference, and a large part of why damage being added to your deck early is very, very important. On top of that, once you do add enough damage to the deck that you're consistently killing Gremlin Knob fast enough, then you do get to start taking your skills. And that's a really big deal because skills are the lifeblood of a lot of runs of Slay the Spire. Being able to block as you go through Act 2 is very often very relevant. You may need skills in order to scale up to beat the Act 1 boss, so on and so forth. And so not taking damage cards early on in Slay the Spire runs, like thinking to yourself, oh, I don't really want to take a Twin Strike, I want to take a different damage card, so I'm going to skip this one and hope to get one later. That has a very large cost. Now, sometimes it's worth it to pay that cost, but the existence of Gremlin Knob creates a cost which is a significant deal. Something like a fire potion or a vulnerable potion or a relic that helps you deal damage like a Vajra can make a really big difference early on in the run as well. And it's important to note, again, not just that those can help you kill Gremlin Knob, but they can also change which cards you get to take in card reward screens early on. So you're not only killing Gremlin Knob with these things, but you're also letting yourself build a deck which is going to be better suited for adapting to later on in the run. And that's Gremlin Knob. Basically, take damage. Take damage in every way. Take damage cards, take damage from Gremlin Knob, you know. All right, next up is Lagavulin. Lagavulin has 109 to 111 HP, which upgrades to 112 and 115 later on in the Ascension levels. I was surprised by how small that range was. It's a very small range for such a large number. I wonder why the devs picked to have it be such a small range. They probably had a lot of iterations of fights against the elite, and later on in the fight, you're dealing damage in small increments sometimes, so perhaps like they found that the difference between HP was actually making a massive difference in people's win rate in this fight. It wouldn't surprise me too much. Lagavulin's big defining characteristic, I would say, is that it sleeps for the first 3 turns of the fight or until you deal it damage. And while it's asleep, well, first off, on turn 1 it has 8 block, and then it has 8 metallicize. So it will get 8 block at the end of turn 1 and the end of turn 2 as well. That's gone once you wake it up, though, at which point you are just dealing damage to it and in the fight. Once it's awake, it will attack you for 18, upgrading eventually to 20 damage twice in a row, and then it will use Siphon Soul, which removes 1 upgrading to 2 dexterity and 1 upgrading to 2 strength from you as the player. I do not at this exact moment remember which order those are in. I think it's this order. This matters if you have an artifact charge, because these are debuffs and an artifact charge can block one of them, but it will block the one that happens first. I'm pretty sure it's dexterity first, but I might be wrong. Maybe I'll leave a comment on the video if I'm wrong. So, the big thing with Lagavulin is you get these 3 turns to set up before the fight really feels like it starts. And so scaling powers like Inflame or Noxious Fumes or Defragment can help a lot. Now, when you think about scaling things for Watcher, you might think like Mental Fortress or Foresight or Talk to the Hand or something like that. But I felt like it was incorrect and misleading to give those as scaling options for Watcher in this fight. So what I gave instead are Crescendo and Carve Reality, which you might not think of those as scaling cards. But once you've drawn a Crescendo or played a Carve Reality and created a Smite in your hand, you have more cards in your hand every turn. So that sort of does scale you, and then you can use them at the appropriate time in the fight. And I think that Crescendo and Carve Reality are examples of cards which are significantly more helpful for Watcher to kill Lagavulin quickly without taking much damage than something like Talk to the Hand or Mental Fortress. Not that Talk to the Hand and Mental Fortress aren't great cards in their own right for their own reasons. It's just in this situation in particular, I wanted to present the idea to you that you could be thinking about scaling in lots and lots and lots of different ways in the game of Slay the Spire. You don't just have to think about the stock standard Inflame as your idea of a scaling card. Yeah, but you know, all of these cards, if you play them before Lagavulin wakes up, it's sort of like being stronger by the time that the fight starts for kind of free. I'd also add like Cool Headed as a scaling option for Defect, Bouncing Flask as a scaling option for Silent. There are lots of options here. I would say if you want to get more successful in the Lagavulin fight, you should be looking out for ways to make block and deal damage which are not affected by the fact that you lose strength and dexterity. So Lightning Orb and Frost Orb for Defect are really good examples. Powers like Metallicize, Noxious Fumes, like I mentioned already, poison damage in general, etc. There are many, many, many. I'm not trying to make a list of everything in the game for you right now. There are many options that fulfill this idea. I wanted to just give you the idea and sort of let you go with it. And understanding And in terms of actually playing the fight, once the fight is going, understanding when you can afford to block versus when you need to just take damage in order to play a strike to deal 6 is very, very, very important to winning the Lagavulin fight. Even as someone who's played the game for thousands and thousands of hours, I still need to slow down in that fight and count the damage remaining in my draw pile, think about how future turns look, in order to decide whether to play a defend or a strike in the Lagavulin fight fairly regularly. That's something that I would recommend you get in the habit of doing and thinking about if you want to improve at the game. More generally, I would say that mapping out turns in combat in order to try to take less damage in combat will probably save you 20 plus health per act pretty easily. If you're a new player of the game, or even if you're like a pretty established player of the game. Now, if you don't enjoy doing that, don't do it. Don't play the game in a way that you don't enjoy. But if you do enjoy doing it, I think Lagavulin's a really good fight to try that out in, because it's a very unique fight, sure, but it's also a fight where you know exactly what's going to happen, and so you can really sort of think your way through everything that's going on. It's got some block in it, it's got some damage, it's got some scaling. I also really think the Jawworm fight is a very good one to think about for similar reasons. And you still have a pretty simple deck in these fights. You're still in Act 1. Jawworm, you may be on floor 1. So when you're doing the analysis, it's going to be useful for you in the future. It's not like analyzing the Heart fight with a very specific deck, which you'll never actually play again. It's like, this is the starter Silent deck. I'm analyzing the Jawworm fight. Every time I play Silent for the rest of my life, this analysis will be relevant to me. So that's Lagavulin. Take a few scaling cards maybe. Make sure you have enough damage to win before you've run out of strength and dexterity, and perhaps keep an eye out for things which function without caring about you losing strength and dexterity. Lagavulin can definitely be dangerous, but the ways that Lagavulin is weak are significant enough that if you're deck building with Lagavulin in mind, you can usually win the fight comfortably. The final elite for Act 1 is the 3 Sentries. The 3 Sentries have 38 to 42 HP, which eventually upgrades to 39 to 45 HP, and that delta of 6 HP is so relevant. The difference between a 45, 45, 45 Sentries fight and a like 39, 45, 45 Sentries fight can be very large. The Sentries only have 2 moves. They have a Beam that deals 9, eventually upgrading to 10 damage, and a Bolt, which places 2, eventually upgrading to 3 dazes into your discard pile. They also start with 1 artifact charge, so like your Bash isn't going to apply Vulnerable, your first Deadly Poison won't apply Poison, your Neutralizes won't weaken the first time through, stuff like that. The other big thing about Sentries is there are 3 of them, and they alternate between Bolt and Beam, with the outer Sentries starting off by giving you dazes, and the central Sentries starting off by hitting you for 9, eventually 10. And because of that, you really want to kill one of the outer Sentries so that you can be taking 10 damage every turn instead of 20 damage one turn and 0 damage the other turn. Because you want to make sure that when you draw your defend, it does something. So anyway, Sentries tips. This is... I was getting ahead of myself. Killing one of the outer Sentries massively reduces the remaining difficulty of the fight, as most hands can output 5 to 10 block, but very few can output close to 20. If you think about the option of getting attacked for 0, then 20, versus the option of getting attacked for 10 every time, well, every defend that you draw in your hand is going to be relevant if you get attacked for 10 every time, but if you get attacked for 0 and then 20, your defends are going to be irrelevant half the time and not enough the other half of the time. So it is usually right and important to be killing one of the outer Sentries as quickly as you can. Often, just playing strikes and ignoring defends. Don't worry about blocking until that Sentry is dead, sort of idea. Big thing with Sentries, and this is perhaps the most advanced concept that I've introduced so far. A big thing about Sentries is managing your second draw pile. So when you shuffle, when you run out of cards in your draw pile in Slay the Spire, you will shuffle your discard pile to make a new draw pile. Okay, simple enough. But a very, very important thing to consider is that any cards that are in your hand when you do that aren't going to be in your second draw pile. So you're only going to get those cards once out of 2 cycles through the deck. So if you have like your best card in your hand as you shuffle your second draw pile, you're losing that for the next 4 turns or something. On top of that, you have to consider that there are sentries putting dazes in your discard pile as this is all happening. So it may be really important to like play a pummel strike to reshuffle your draw pile one turn faster to stop yourself from having another 6 dazes in your second draw pile. So paying a lot of attention to that can be a really big deal. It's such a big deal that sometimes it makes the difference between skipping and taking a card as you go through Act 1, because you want your deck to be at 15 cards, so you can draw 5, draw 5, draw 5, and then shuffle your next draw pile with 15 real cards in it. Whereas if you had 14 cards, you draw 5, draw 5, draw 4, and then you'd have to shuffle to draw your 5th card for the turn, and your second draw pile is only going to have, well, it'll perhaps start with 10, but you might draw one of those cards on turn 3, and you'll be left with 9. So you'll be left with 9 real cards and 9 dazes, which is only 50% real cards, whereas if you went 5, 5, 5, and then reshuffled, you'd have 15 real cards, and hopefully, if you've killed a sentry, you'll only have 12 dazes. Or perhaps you could do something like play 2 or 3 cards and then play a pummel strike, in which case your draw pile is going to have 13 real cards and only 9 dazes. There's a lot to think about here, and I'm not going to solve this problem for you right now. It's way too complicated and something that I have to think about every time I play the Sentries fight, but it's something that you'll benefit from considering. A big thing about Sentries is that there are extremely strong scaling options for this fight because of the dazes mechanic and because they attack you for 10 over and over and over again. So something like Feel No Pain will basically mitigate all of their damage the second time through your deck just by gaining block from the dazes. Footwork is going to mitigate a ton of their damage because all you have to do is draw 1 defend every turn to block most of the incoming 10. Cool-Headed plus Defragment is going to mitigate tons and tons of damage because it will make block every single turn. Shout out to Metallicize here, which didn't make the graphic because there are so many good Ironclad cards for this fight, but similar idea. And a lot of these scaling cards you'd like to have in your deck. Oh, also, I didn't put one for Watcher because I think the way Watcher typically is meant to kill sentries is just to kill them. Just enter Wrath and kill them all. Anyway, a lot of these strong scaling options you'd like to have in your deck late game anyway. And so recognizing that they're really good against sentries and often like somewhere between good and okay against Lagavulin is a lot of your justification for taking them on very early floors of the run, where they're like not necessarily good against the hallway fights you're in yet and things like that. They're not that good on turn 1 and so on and so forth, but they can be good against sentries, okay against Lagavulin, and if they're at least not terrible against Gremlinob and you have enough damage against Gremlinob, that's your pivot point where you get to start taking cards like this for the run. Yeah, so that is my talk about elites. All right, hello again. Let's play an Ascension 1 Ironclad run. Elites spawn more often. Runs get harder as you win, win streaks are unaffected. It was pointed out to me by someone that the card in a wall event doesn't happen on your highest ascension. Oh my god, this map. Sorry. Oh my gosh, this map. If I got this on Ascension 20, I would start thinking about the next run. This map is ludicrous. Anyway, the card in the wall event, I don't think actually spawns on your highest ascension level, so I don't think we'll ever see it again in the entire series. But I left a Volt Plus in it, so, you know, for future generations, I've done my part. Wow, I'm just trying to like process how I should talk about this. If this was an Ascension 20 run, I would say on Ironclad, generally going 3 hallway fights, a question mark, in a store into an elite with no campfire is going to be pretty safe. And you can buy potions here and get through the fight, even on Ascension 20. And so on Ironclad, I'd be like looking at this path, and I would expect to make it through this act a decent chunk of the time, like more than half of the time significantly. But I wouldn't expect my deck to be very good. Hexaghost is a tough boss at the end of the act, and there's like no shop in late act to buy any scaling option for Hexaghost. There's only 1 campfire prior to this one to upgrade at. This map is a nightmare. On Ascension 20, like taking this fourth hallway fight, like this path and this path might look very similar to you, but the first 3 hallway fights are easy pull fights, and the fourth one is a hard pull fight, and the hard pull for hallway fights is much, much, much harder. So, like, the fact that this node exists on this path does reduce your chance of surviving it by a significant amount. Even if you could survive it, the act isn't much better. You could try going this way, which is perhaps the most appealing path through the act, but you wouldn't survive it that often. I think on Ascension 20, I would probably path this way with the hope that the store had good potions in it for this elite fight, and the idea that if I was very strong, I could take this path, which is, I think, probably the strongest path in the act, because elite fights give you lots of rewards and campfires give you a lot of flexibility later on. But it's still not that good a path. What an act. Anyway, on Ascension 1, I'm just going to go this way and kill all the elites. All right, we have our first whale bonus, like real whale bonus of the save file. This is the first time I have a character which made it to the Act 1 boss in the previous run. This is the first time I have a character which has a previous run. And so because of that, I get 4 whale options. Some people mistakenly believe that your whale options are based on the last run you played at all. They're based on the last run you played as the character. So the last run I played as Ironclad, I made it to the Act 1 boss or further, so I get 4 options at the whale bonus. I am not going to talk a ton about whale bonuses right now. We're focused on elites right now. I think that for the elite path I'm taking a common relic seems like a lot of sensible things, and pen nib is a lot of damage, so that should help. Let's get into it. Play some hallway fights, get some potions, get some good damage hopefully, and fight some elites. This is going to be a run where the difference between the low ascension and the high ascension modifiers on fights and elites and rewards and everything makes a significant difference, probably. These are solid commons to be offered early. I already have a pen nib, which makes clothesline a little bit more appealing. Pummel Strike is just a very good early damage card. Card Draw is a premium late game, and so if you can solve early game in ways which give you card draw late game, that can make your late game much easier to win. And Armaments is a very powerful card throughout the run in many, many different flexible ways. I think in this situation, I'm going to take the Pummel Strike, which I think is a slightly more appealing option than the clothesline, unless I need a lot of help from the weak the clothesline is providing, which would be good against like Lagavulin, for example. But in general, because you have Bash on Ironclad, while you're still on 3 energy per turn, taking a 2-cost attack is much lower value. At sometimes in my Slay the Spire career, I've liked boss relic swapping at Whale on Ironclad to get a 4th energy so that you can take clothesline, and if you draw Bash clothesline, you actually just play both of them. But at this point in my Slay the Spire career, I don't really enjoy boss relic swapping, so you're not going to see me do that, and it's not really a statement on whether it's good or not, it's a statement on whether I enjoy it or not, which is fine. You're allowed to enjoy or not enjoy things in a game. Taking gold here seems completely fine. I should be healing in fights. Jawworm. So we get to go Bash and Pen Nib to strike this turn, and then we will win the fight this turn, probably. Yep. Playing around with Pen Nib to try to get it on a right number at the end of the fight is a really interesting puzzle, which I could have done more of that there. I'm probably not going to go for micro optimizations and fights a ton at low ascension just because it's a lot of work. Burning Pact and Anger are both incredibly high value cards here. Anger for the elites that I have to kill, Burning Pact because of all of the ways that it synergizes with Ironclad's card pool and enables strategies later on in the game. So the question that I'm being asked here in my mind is, do I need the Anger that's good right now to get through the path that I'm taking, or can I just get away with taking Burning Pact to start making late game work? And it's very hard for me to give you the right answer to that question. For one, it's sort of impossible to really know that in Slay the Spire. It's just, the game's too hard and big and complicated. You'll never, like, there are another 54 floors, sorry, There are another 54 floors left in this run, over which my choice to take Anger or Burning Pact will be influential on what happens. There's just no way that I can extremely confidently tell you that one of these two extremely good cards is better than the other one. The other problem is I haven't played Ascension 1 a single time in like 3 years. So I'm completely uncalibrated for what this difficulty is. I assume that I have a very, very high win rate, but I don't know whether like one of these is 99% to win and the other is 98% to win or something like that. I don't know. I'm going to take Anger because I like the card. I also think that Anger is a card that's a little bit more fun to show off. I think that people understand a bit more easily what Burning Pact is strong for, whereas with Anger, I'm of the opinion that I often have people say things about Anger that are like expressing they're not quite sure why the card is strong. So hopefully we'll get to see Anger do some cool things here. And yeah, I could take Iron Wave. It feels like it might be a little bit overkill. I don't know. I think at Ascension 20 I'd take Iron Wave here, so I'll take it in this spot too. This is the hard pool Holy fight, and you can see immediately, I assume, that it is much, 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 much more difficult than the other fights have been doing. I have a pen nib here, which makes playing Bash a lot more appealing. Bash deals an extra 5 damage immediately. We get to that being on 23 health, 10 health. It's a bad rounding error. I could also play Iron Wave Strike Defend, which would deal 17, putting this at 29. 20 again. I'm going to be overkilling it by 4 or 5, unfortunately. I could kill this one first. Let's think about killing that one first. Bash puts it at 24. A Strike would put it at 6, but that doesn't kill, so we're going to use Iron Wave, which puts it at 9 instead. And then a Strike next turn would kill it. Yeah, that seems a lot better. The risk here is in this fight, the looter will run away on turn 4 or 5 with my gold, and I don't really want to lose my gold. But I think at this difficulty, with how much damage I put in my deck, I should be able to kill it before it gets away anyway. And also, like, my gold is probably less valuable than my health right now. I'm just being, I'm being sort of ludicrous because it's low Ascension. I would not be thinking that much about my gold if this were high Ascension. Alright, cool. I put pen nib on 8 instead of 9 there. That was a deliberate decision so I can play Bash first in the next fight. Sorry, I banged my microphone. Anger, Dark Embrace, Heavy Blade. We take Dark Embrace here. I think Dark Embrace is one of the strongest and most important cards in the entire game. Ironclad's card pool, about like 30% of it or so, give or take, roughly. You don't need to know the exact number, but about 30% of Ironclad's card pool says exhaust on it in some way. And, you know, making every single card that exhausts itself or another card draw one card is a really big deal. Also, starting to build toward the synergy package that exists with like Corruption and Feel No Pain, which are 2 other powers which influence exhaust very heavily, is very important. Dark Embrace is also nice because, like I was talking about in the presentation at the start of this video, against Lagavulin, I can just play this before Lagavulin starts attacking me, so it's not like a terrible card to have in my deck. And against Sentries, well, it sort of wins the Sentries fight for me, because when I draw Dazes in the second time through my deck, they're going to exhaust and give me more cards. Starting to wonder if I go this way, actually, and that way I can get that elite. I don't really see why not. I know when I was looking at the act originally, I thought that I was meant to go this way if I got to this point. I was in good shape, but actually, like, the end of this act isn't very good, and I can just go this way, get some later act question marks, which have some decent value, and get another elite. I do like this path has more campfires, though. I think I've changed my mind. I'd like to upgrade Dark Embrace. I'd like to upgrade Anger. I'd like to upgrade Pommel Strike even. Yeah, I think I've changed my mind again. Going back and forth. All right, Lagavulin it is. This is actually a really interesting turn. Believe it or not. The fact that Bash deals exactly 8 and no more is very important in the Lagavulin fight because it means that you can play it while Lagavulin's asleep without waking Lagavulin up, and the next turn Lagavulin will be vulnerable and I'll have a pen nib. The only problem is I haven't played Dark Embrace yet, but I guess I don't need to play Dark Embrace. I can just have a curse in my deck this fight. That seems fine. So yeah, next turn I will have 3 energy worth of attacks, maybe an anger as well. Oh, I got unlucky. That's too bad. That's too bad, but I think we still do this. And we get a good start to the fight. Lagavulin's on 81 health already. I don't see much reason not to use Vulnerable Potion here. It seems like what it's for, killing the elite fights early. I also don't see much reason not to be playing Defend. I think with Anger in my deck, I have plenty of damage. Also, there's a pen nib that's going to proc again in this fight, maybe. Probably, almost certainly. Alright, so we should kill next turn with pen nib. There's a question of whether I want to play Anger or not here. 6, 12. I think I can advance pen nib further with no risk if I don't. 4, 6, 12 actually, 16, 20. Okay, it's possible to fail, but it's like very, very unlikely. I'm not going to play the Anger. Because I want to be able to play more attacks. So this gets me 1 more attack than I would have otherwise had. Wait, what? Am I losing my mind? Oh, I understand, I think. How my math was wrong. Anyway, it is not a huge deal. We get a Preserved Insect, which is a very powerful relic, helps with future elite fights. I'm not going to take a second Anger. One of the main reasons that I have an Anger at all is so I don't have to take many attacks, so I'm not super interested in taking another one. I'm not going to take a Cleave, although it is possible that it would be quite good, but I don't feel the need here. And I'm just going to go ahead and upgrade Anger, and let's go into another elite fight. Unfortunately, I don't have a potion. I do have a Preserved Insect, though. Which is kind of like having a potion for this Gremlin Nub fight. Gremlin Nub's at 86 health. And we'll hopefully... We got unlucky to get vulnerable first. Well, probably we got unlucky to be vulnerable first. Yes, we did get unlucky to be vulnerable first. I am 1 pen nib charge short of avoiding all of this damage. So you can see how big a deal just a tiny thing like that can be. That said, I failed to avoid the damage, so I guess we'll take some damage. I could triple defend here. I think it's correct to. This gets me out of the fight, taking the least amount of damage overall. It does mess with my pen nib by activating it when I might have been able to get through the fight without activating it, but that's okay. I got a Molten Egg, so future attacks added to the deck will be upgraded. And I'm being offered Fiendfire, Shockwave, Body Slam. Fiendfire and Body Slam obviously being upgraded. I think it would be incredibly difficult not to take Fiendfire here with pen nib and Dark Embrace already. So I'm going to do that. And yeah. I expect that to be very, very strong going forward in the run. We can take Ginger for sure. We can no longer become weakened. That's great. A lot of our damage, all of our damage is coming from attacks right now. So becoming weakened is not our jam. Definitely want to be full blocking there because Fiendfire is going to end the fight once we draw it. And we get a Feel No Pain as well. Whenever a card is exhausted, gain 3 blocks. So we've got ourselves some of these exhaust synergies starting to work. Let's get the Dark Embrace cheaper so we can put it in play. Even if I get Snecko Eye, which I'd be quite happy to take right now, Snecko Eye is going to make the upgrade on Dark Embrace stop being relevant. Because when I draw a Dark Embrace, it will have a randomized cost. But even if I do draw it, or even if I do get Snecko Eye, sorry, I'm still very okay with having upgraded Dark Embrace there. 7 or 8 for... like 8 still? I'm not sure. Reckless Charge Plus, Flex Shockwave. Reckless Charge Plus is actually pretty good already. This card would be good just by itself in Act 1 as a 10 damage, 0 cost attack. It has a drawback in quotation marks, but it's not a large enough drawback to make it a bad card in Act 1. The Dazed currently draws me a card when it exhausts and it gives me block, so like the Dazed it puts in my draw pile isn't even bad. It's worth noting and very important to note that you don't start with Dark Embrace and Feel No Pain in play though, so anytime you take a card like Reckless Charge, it gets harder to put Dark Embrace and Feel No Pain in play because you have another card in your deck that you could draw before them, and so the more that you justify taking a card like Reckless Charge because of Dark Embrace and Feel No Pain, ironically, the less that argument actually works. All that being said, though, I'm just going to take Shockwave. This card is a premium way to amplify your damage and reduce your enemy's incoming attack multiplicatively. Weak and Vulnerable are great all the way throughout the game. Early on, they do fine, and later on, the enemies are attacking for more, so they do even better. And I already have a Feel No Pain and a Dark Embrace that will make Shockwave better than it would otherwise be. Let's get another couple of upgrades here. I'm going to upgrade Shockwave for the Hex Ghost fight. And a question mark over Hallway fight without, I'm not going to get into my justifications for that a ton. We can talk about that more later in the series. Upgrade a Pommel Strike 2. I don't really think I need to upgrade Feel No Pain yet, but I certainly will plan to at some point in the run. I guess Pendulum on 9 would have been better with this exact starting hand. It's okay. Don't think I need those 3 defense. I have 52 health. So Hexaghost has this really interesting mechanic where it attacks you for more the more health that you have on turn 2. It only happens on turn 2, and there's no other turn in the entire game where the enemy attacks you for more or less damage based on how much health you have. It's just here. But that is currently happening, so that's too bad. I don't think I'm going to use Dexpot. Doesn't seem necessary. I hope I'm not massively misjudging this fight, but I don't think I am. I think we're going to see Anger just absolutely take over this fight, combined with Pommel Strike Plus. And eventually a Pendulum proc or 2. Iron Wave definitely not doing bad here at all. There's my Pendulum. And you can hopefully see how much extra damage I'm getting out of these Angers. Like, look at this turn. Look at this turn. And that's what Anger does, especially early on in the run. And we full heal at the end of the act, so we're back to full. Options are Reaper plus Offering and Limit Break. I think there was a time in my life where I valued Reaper highly enough that I would be taking it over Offering here at max difficulty. I can't speak to what I do at Ascension 1 because I don't play Ascension 1. At this point in my life, I am much, much, much higher on the value of Offering, and especially coupled with Dark Embrace, Fiendfire, Feel No Pain already. Offering's clearly incredibly good here. Reaper gets better with Pendub, but it's not that huge a deal, I don't think. There are just other ways that we can win the run. Okay, so I've gone from looking at the Act 1 map thinking, oh my god, that is awful, to looking at the start of Act 2 and thinking, oh my god, I have already won the run. Let's, I got Runic Pyramid again, which coupled with Fiendfire in particular is just an obscenely powerful thing. Oh, I've wasted my Pendub. I should have just played Fiendfire. That's okay though. I'm gonna take another Dark Embrace, why not? I'm going to try to sort of vibe my way through the rest of the run pretty quickly now. I certainly feel very confident in my ability to win from here, and I don't think I'm going to have to personally think too hard about what I'm doing. So I'm just kind of going to vibe through it, and we'll chat about stuff, and enjoy the rest of the run, I guess. I took a Toxic Egg because I really like Toxic Egg, mostly. Toxic Egg is one of my favorite cards. Sorry, it's a relic. It's one of my favorite relics. It is not a card. Does this kill? What do you think? The Fiend Fire here. I don't believe I can make Fiend Fire kill yet. It should kill next turn. Fiend Fire is very, very, very strong with Runic Pyramid because you get to do this. Doesn't that just sort of seem unfair? Sort of seems unfair to me. 66 gold. Take a Shrug, take a True Grit Plus. True Grit Plus is not bad. Neither is Shrug. Try True Grit Plus with double Dark Embrace in the deck already. Makes sense to me. Alright, this is our first Super Elite. So after you get... Wait, is that our first Super Elite? No, we got the one on Watcher as well, right? It's our... Not our first. It's our second Super Elite. Anyway, it's about to blow up. We're about to kill it with Fiend Fire. Trying to work out the rest of this turn. I'm making choices between ways to take like 0 damage or 0 damage here, I think. Probably. Okay, sure. Yep. Yep. Got a clear hand space because max hand size is 10. So I want to make sure that I'm actually drawing as many cards as I can. That's why I played Anger there instead of holding it. Good fight. Drop kick, go infinite again? Why not? One of the things that you get very, very good at as you try to improve in Slay the Spire is recognizing what will win you the run. And then once you've found it, committing to it and letting it win you the run. So, especially on low difficulty, there are going to be times where I just know that I won. And apparently we're in one of those times. 7 times 15, I believe, is 105. Isn't it? Last time I checked it was. Seeing Red seems very, very powerful here. Oh my god. How much do I want to style on this game right now? Quite a lot. Alright. Oh no. Oh no. This is like arguably the hardest hallway fight in the game. It shouldn't be too bad with my potions on Ascension 1 though. Okay. I just skipped a meat on the bone as well. I didn't really comment on that, but I just decided I didn't need it, so I skipped it. Meat on the bone is a very powerful relic. Hopefully I will not pay for my hubris. The last time I played Low Ascension, I tried to see how many runs in a row I could play at Ascension 0 without losing. And I got into like the 20s, and then I just got really, really bored, and I took Searing Blow, and then I took Call of the Bell, without either of them being good, and just tried to win with that, and then I died, and I was like, oh, I'm dead. And I definitely wonder if something like that will happen in this series, as I refuse to acknowledge the difficulty of the game, and choose to instead believe that I can just do whatever I want. For now, though, does kind of feel like I'm right that I can do whatever I want, so we'll see how long that feeling lasts. I have to play Offering in this fight, which is not something I was really hoping to do, but they have successfully forced me to. And it's fine. It still ends up netting me +3 health. I just don't need 3 Dark Embraces. That's just not necessary. Ancient Potion plus Flex Potion is a very important synergy to know about. At the end of your turn, you lose 5 strength. That's a debuff. So if you have an artifact charge, which negates the next debuff, when you drink the Flex Potion, you will never get the at the end of your turn lose 5 strength at all, so we'll block that. Also, if you drink the Flex Potion and get the debuff at the end of your turn lose 5 strength, and then you get an artifact charge, that will stop you losing 5 strength, which is also a debuff. Flex Potion gives you debuffs twice. Once it gives you a debuff that says at the end of your turn lose 5 strength, and the second time it makes you lose 5 strength. So that's a really important synergy to know about. I don't actually think I care about it here, though, for what it's worth. I should have taken another. Should have taken another gold. Oh well. I'm pretty sure I could have killed her with Fiend Fire, but I'd rather just advance Pen Nib anyway. Try to get it up to, like... Honestly, 9 might be the right number. Maybe I'll try to get it all the way to 9. 6, 7, 8, 9. Alright. Paper Frog. Enemies with vulnerable take 75% more damage rather than 50% more damage. That's very strong. Wow. My card rewards this run have been just unbelievably strong. I think I take Feed over Offering. Feed doesn't play very well with Fiend Fire. A nice synergy with Feed is when it gives you 4 max HP, it heals you for 4 as well, which with Magic Flower starts healing you for 6 instead. So, but mostly I'm taking this because it's Feed. I feel like I could have taken another another gold from Knowing Skull. Bit of a weird turn. I do want to try to draw extra here because I'd like to draw and play Anger. Found it. Cool. I'm pretty okay with these stealing cards, I think. I guess I'd like Offering back. Wait, I kind of need True Grit as well. That's awkward. Alright, I guess I'm killing the ads then. I've managed to make this fight a little bit interesting for myself, for sure. Doesn't this just, like, win this turn, though? I think this just wins this turn with this potion. And I don't see why not to go for that. I guess I could win next turn instead. Like, I could chill out ever so slightly. Oh, I used a flex potion already. Yeah, never mind. Alright, I didn't do that very well. We're fine now. How this is going to go is I'm going to play Bash, and then I'm going to play Fiendfire, and the fight is going to be over. Definitely a situation where spending a little bit longer thinking through what was going on would have done better for me, but where this did good enough. Right, I distilled chaos. I have 896 gold. I have another offering if I'd like. I think I would. Impervious is a very strong card. Double tap is hilarious with Fiendfire because I can play double tap, then play Fiendfire, and with Dark Embrace it will draw a bunch more cards after I exhaust my hand, and then I'll exhaust all of them as well. That's a way that players who are not familiar with the interaction will lose entire games sometimes. I think with double offering, I can probably take Empty Cage over Runic Dome. Runic Dome, I think, is more powerful here, but I think that Empty Cage will be a more pleasant viewing experience for someone new to Spire. Not being able to see what the enemies do is kind of a downer sometimes. Alright. I go to a shop with 896 gold. Unfortunately, with how this act is set up, I only get one shop. But there's always next act. Once you're fighting the heart, there is always next act to think about too. Don't draw feed. Alright. Anger Sword, Boomerang, Headbutt, Armaments. Nope. 908 gold. Another Dark Embrace. The Seeing Red. I think the spot weakness is probably okay. Remove another strike. Unceasing Top Ornamental Fan's kind of interesting. In fact, we're playing on low Ascension, so the Beat of Death is one less. Let's go for it, that seems like fun. This potion is quite powerful with Feed and Magic Flower. I'll just take it and plan to hold it for the heart fight, maybe. Alright, yeah, I'm gonna sort of vibe through the rest of the run as quickly as I can. I think we're doing well. Flash of Steel dropkick gives me the infinite I've been looking for a while. Violence seems pretty strong to me to get Fiendfire in play early. Thinking Ahead is quite strong to be able to Fiendfire and keep Feed around. If I were playing this run more seriously, I'd be going to every hallway fight right now to try to play Feed many times to get my max HP up. But I don't think we need to worry too much about it. deck is starting to do things. So I often say that the most important resources in this game are energy and card draw. And what you're starting to see with this deck is you're starting to see what happens when you put energy and card draw in your deck. Take the cards that don't have energy and card draw in them out, and put cards that do have energy and card draw in them in. And you end up with a deck that does a lot of things very fast. Well, thinking ahead also combos with Letter Opener. It's killed something with violence, like the card though, not the cards I drew from it. That's kind of funny. You gotta admit, that's kind of funny. None of these seem like they need to be upgraded. I'll just recall. The Nemesis. Decent chance that we kill this turn 1. Yeah, I don't get to play Fiendfire though, because I want to feed. Should be fine. Pocket Watch is one of the strongest relics in the game. It is not very good here though. Whenever you play 3 or less cards in your turn, draw 3 additional cards at the start of your next turn. It's not good for 2 reasons. 1, I'm always playing tons of cards. 2, I have a Runic Pyramid, so the extra cards I would draw next turn don't fit in my hand anyway. I might as well upgrade Bash. I don't see anything else to do. Happy Flowers, quite useful. One thing to pay attention to, actually, that's a really good Pocket Watch this turn. One thing to pay attention to here is, note that I didn't take an Energy Relic. I often hear people express to me that they struggle to win unless they get an Energy Relic. And I think the simple way to explain how to do that is to reframe the idea of where your energy is coming from. Your energy doesn't have to come from your boss relics. Your energy can instead come from your cards. And that's what you're seeing in this run, is that I've built a deck where my energy comes from my cards. And it has also kind of accidentally gone infinite. That's just one of the things that can happen when your energy comes from your cards, is you can start playing all of your cards and then, you know, win. I'll take another Shockwave. It seems sort of reasonable. I'll take an Elixir as well. Elixir with double Dark Embrace and a Feel No Pain lets me exhaust my deck very quickly. Lantern's not bad at all. Getting some decent relics right now. This is sort of like a fever dream where I'm trying to play very quickly and it's all working for me, and I'm like, what? Am I just like the best that I've ever been right now? And it's like, no, I'm playing on Ascension 1, but but still. Interesting for me to have this experience. I need to make a little bit more hand space, but I don't want to play Fiendfire. I'm not entirely sure why I don't want to play Fiendfire. I'm just not doing it. I think I'm worried that it will accidentally kill the Guardian. You get to see True Grit doing its thing here. True Grit, if it needs to, can exhaust your entire deck eventually, if you give it enough time. Your entire deck except itself, anyway. ideally you don't need True Grit to do that because you just like have a Fiend Fire you can play instead or whatever. But in theory, that's something that True Grit can do, and especially at low Ascension, sometimes fights will be slow enough for you that you actually can just win the fight that way. Lizard Tail is another very good relic. Something to pay attention to, and I think it does matter to get your intuition dialed in for this, is look at how much stronger my deck has gotten in Act 3. And then think about what it would have been like if I didn't take any... Sorry. Think about what it would have been like if I didn't do the things that were necessary for me to make it into Act 3. If I played the run in a way that died to Automaton, for example. Which feels like a really weird thing for me to talk about right now, because I like lost 70 health to Knowing Skull or whatever in Act 2. But pretend that I was playing conservatively and making sure that I didn't die unnecessarily in Act 2. I would have been rewarded with a ton of really good relics and a very winnable run from that point onward. And sometimes you'll try to cut corners because you're afraid of not getting enough later on in the run to actually win the run. And because of that, you'll lose a run that you should have won, because you never put yourself in a situation to get offered like Pocket Watch and Lizard Tail as you go through Act 3, which would have been strong enough for you if you had been careful and got into the place where you got them. Where's my Dark Embrace? Hello? Definitely not the best turn 1 I've had this run. It'd be quite difficult for it to... I mean, I think I just have lethal in hand, so... Well, let's see if I can feed. It's fun to at least try, right? Signs are pointing to yes. Perfect. A potion belt. Oh my, that's so many potions. Wow. You can just have that many potions, huh? I'm going to take a barricade because I don't see any reason not to, and it's a fun card. And also it gives me something that I feel good about upgrading, which is like a nice extra bonus. Also, I just got a dexterity potion, so my block generation got like slightly better. Not a lot better. Disarm is very, very good against Time Eater. I didn't play Strike there, so the Pocket Watch would proc. For me, that's like a very automatic thing, but it does like... I feel like the first time you've seen it, it's like, oh yeah, of course, but before the first time you've seen it, it can be a little bit tough to understand, maybe. Play this. I don't have a Dark Embrace in play yet. Now I Fiend Fire. I make sure that I have all of the parts of my infinite there, so it's important to make sure that I can still apply vulnerable because I just exhausted my bash. But yeah, in this case I can. Against Time Eater, obviously the infinite isn't infinite, but it still wins the fight and kills the enemy, so that's completely fine. I don't know what my cat wants. Oh, in fact, I just like win this turn. We don't even get to the part where Time Eater cleanses. Cat, if you want to yell at me, maybe you could stay here and do it to my face. Alright. 1046 score. We open Act 4. Let's do our thing here. I really don't have anything to do with this campfire. Like, I guess we'll upgrade Iron Wave. It's been with us the entire run. Feels like it's earned it. Yeah, all of these are fine. Card remove and potion and toolbox is pretty strong. Warcry is completely fine. That looks good to me. Weak potion's pretty good, actually. Get a weak potion. I have an embarrassment of riches here. I think I could easily lose like my best 5 relics and all of my potions and still expect to always win this run or something like that. It's like pretty ridiculous how much stronger this deck is than it needs to be. They only have 1 artifact charge. That's just the ascension that I'm on, I guess. Oh, that makes this easier. Yeah. Cool. Pretty good turn 1. Sometimes when you're so used to the infinite, it feels kind of weird to be playing Angers, but I can, I don't need to do the infinite to deal 50 damage here. That is unnecessary at this time in the run. I don't need a Reaper, do I? I don't think so. Gonna take a bit of damage from the Beat of Death at the start here, and then I'll stop taking damage from the Beat of Death pretty quickly. I think I might just not bother using potions, because it seems like I'll use this one. It does kind of seem like too much work. Okay. The Corrupt Heart. We talked about this already in the Watcher run. Definitely a unique enemy, which requires some thoughtful deck building to defeat sometimes. Also, though, an enemy which very much dies to you making infinite damage and block. So, if you can do that, you're going to be okay in this fight. And most of the other ones in the game. I'm just going to play my feed. I don't need to end the run on a feed. It's a cute thing to do, but I need to clear hand space so that I can get my infinite working. Disarm is very, very, very strong because of what it does on this turn. I'm just not getting attacked, obviously. And I should just continue to get rid of as many cards as I can. Oh, I guess I have, I'll use Elixir. This is what I took Elixir for, so might as well use it. Maybe end the run with no cards left in my deck. That'd be fun. Sometimes people ask me what happens if you have no cards left in your deck. The answer is you just don't draw any cards. You might win if you have like bronze scales, but you won't have any cards in your hand every turn. In this case, though, what's going to happen when I have no cards left in my deck is the heart is going to die to the Fiend Fire that I'm in the process of playing. That's cool. I forgot that I took Unceasing Top. That has not drawn a card. It has not come close to drawing a card. Oops. In this case, I should not play Fiend Fire this turn because the heart is the heart can't take more than 145 damage, so that would be a very impressive and disappointing way to lose the run. But now I can Fiend Fire with Pen Nib, and oh, technically I still have a Dropkick in my deck, I guess. I didn't actually have 0 cards because my Dropkick was in my discard pile. Could have drank the Swift Potion. But I didn't do that. All right, so that is the Ironclad run. We're through Ascension 1 on Ironclad. Some interesting stuff going on in Act 1 with the pathing, although on this difficulty, there are enough resources to get through something like that without too much trouble, as you could see. And then, yes, just some very, very strong exhaust synergy stuff from there, which is, this deck would have, like, very easily won Ascension 20. So, just a very, very, very strong deck. I've unlocked Omamori, Prayer Wheel, and Shovel! Exclamation mark dig. You know, dig for relics at rest sites, which is cool. I guess I have no real commentary on this stuff. Changing the relic pool slightly is not going to make a major difference to you, your strategy or your runs. You're just, most of the time you won't see these, and when you do, sure, you have a relic. So, thanks for tuning in. Thank you to NordVPN for sponsoring the video, and to you for putting up with me inviting sponsors to sponsor the series. And I will see you next time for a silent run. And thank you to Anthony and Casey for making an incredible video game.